August 13th, 2015 meeting. Good afternoon and welcome to Virginia Beach Planning Commission. My name is Jeff Hodson. I'm the chairman. Before we get started, I've asked Pastor Bedell to please lead us in prayer. This will be followed by the pledge led by Commissioner Russo. Please stand.
Let us pray. Dear God, we thank you for the opportunity that we have to live in such an amazing place where we have the freedoms to move and thrive and breathe as you command. God, we pray that you bless our time today, that all the things that will be coming forward that can be done so in an honorable and tidy manner, that we can do more in your city to honor you, the people, and ultimately make this community a better place. God, we thank you for your love and your grace. And through you we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor Bedell, for the prayer, and thank you, Commissioner Russo, for the pledge. Next, I've asked Commissioner David Weiner to please introduce the members.
Thank you, Mr. Hodson. I'm going to start on the far side over there. We have Bill McCulley, who's our city attorney. Next is Jack Wall. Jack is a civil engineer, and he represents Rose Hall District. Next is Dr. Karen Beersley-Kwanzi, is a professor of literature and cultural studies, and she represents the Princess Anne District. Next is Dee Oliver. She is a funeral director, and she represents, or she's at large. Next is Ron Ripley. Ron is in real estate management and development, and he is at large. Next is Phil Russo. Phil is the secretary of the Planning Commission. He is an attorney, and he is at large also. Next is Jeff Hodson. Jeff is the chairman of the Planning Commission. He is in real estate management, and he represents the Beach District. Next is Bob Thornton. Bob is the vice chairman of the Planning Commission. He is also in commercial real estate and leasing, and he represents the Lynn Haven District. Next is Jan Brzezinski. She is in property management, and she represents the Centerville District. Next to me is Mike Inman. Mike is an attorney, and he is at large. My name is David Weiner. I represent the Kempsville District, and I'm in commercial sales. Sitting next to me is the empty chair is Ross Brockwell. He is not here today. Hopefully when he gets back, he'll be able to give us a briefing on emergency hurricane evacuation. He had to treat the school this week. And next, we'd like to introduce Mr. Barry Frankenfield, who is our interim director of planning. And Mr. Frankenfield, welcome to the Planning Commission.
Thank you, everybody, very much. Everybody's been very nice to me, which, if you know me that well, that's kind of unusual. But I was challenged to make a joke about one of the staff, and since I'm so new, I figured that might. No. Well, he asked me not to make a joke about him, but so I said I'd tell a joke about myself. So I want to apologize in advance for anything I say, because not only do you not know what's going to come out of my mouth, sometimes I don't know what's going to come out of my mouth. So hang with me, and I'll do my best. With that, I'd like to introduce my wingman, Ed Whedon, who just left. Carolyn Smith, staff's up front, Christine Gay, Dr. Stephen White, Kevin Kemp, and where is she? And Karen Lasley, there she is, I couldn't see her. And in the back is Brian Solis, who's the current SGA manager and transportation manager. So thank you very much, and we look forward to working with you.
Welcome, Barry. Welcome to the Planning Commission. I have asked everyone to keep the hazing to a minimum, but they are tough to control. So, next, I've asked Commissioner Jan Brzezinski to please introduce or basically read the rules that we use to govern this meeting.
Thank you, Chairman Hodson. The Virginia Beach Planning Commission takes pride in being fair and courteous to all parties in attendance. It is important that all involved understand how the Commission normally conducts its meetings. It's equally important that everyone treat each other and the members of this commission with respect and civility. The Commission requests that if you have a cell phone, please silence or turn it off at this time. This is an abbreviated explanation of the rules. The complete set of rules is located in the front of the Planning Commission agenda for today. Following is the order of business for this public hearing. Withdrawals and deferrals. The chairman will ask if there's any requests for withdrawal or deferral on any item on the agenda. Consideration of these will be made first. The consent agenda is the second order of business, and that's the consideration of those items that the Planning Commission believes are unopposed and which have favorable staff recommendation. Next will be the regular agenda, and those are the rest of the items that are left on today's agenda. Please note that action taken by the Commission today is in the form of a recommendation to the Virginia Beach City Council. The final decision for approval or disapproval for any item and application will be made solely by City Council. The Commission thanks you for your attendance. We hope that your experience here today leaves you feeling that you've been heard and treated fairly. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jan. The first order of business is to address those items to be withdrawn or deferred. Would you please come forward if you have an item either to be withdrawn or deferred? Good afternoon, Mr. Miller.
I'm Bob Miller, local professional engineer. Item number 7, we'd like to have a deferral on that item.
Thank you. Is there any opposition to this item being deferred? Thank you.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Eddie Verdon, Virginia Beach Attorney, on Case 3. That needs to be deferred, as Ms. Wilson advised you all in the informal briefing. Look forward to being first next month. Thank you.
Thank you. Any opposition to agenda item number 3 being deferred? I am not aware of any other deferrals. Do I have a motion on the deferred items?
I move that we defer items 3 and 7.
Motion made by Vice Chairman Bob Thornton. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Rosinski. We're ready to vote.
The vote is open. Not working?
Nope. We had a problem last month.
I think it was.
Circuit breaker.
Barry, you don't have anything to do with this, do you?
No, I was just thinking that probably, I was messing around with these buttons.
Try it now.
Go with a voice vote.
Let's do verbal.
Try one more time.
Nope.
I guess we could do a verbal.
Yeah.
Jack?
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. By a vote of 10 to 0, the commission has approved the applications of number 3 and number 7 for deferral.
Thank you. The next items we'll address are those to be placed on the consent agenda. The Vice Chairman will now handle this portion of the agenda.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This afternoon, we have 8 items on the consent agenda. The first matter is agenda item number 1. This is an application by Qualiga Dukes, a subdivision variance at 2884 Indian River Road, Council District, Princess Anne. Is there a representative here to speak on this matter?
I'm Kalijah Dukes.
Okay, please state your name for the record.
Kalijah Dukes.
Okay, thank you. Are the conditions that are set forth from the staff acceptable?
Yes, they are.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Is there any opposition to this matter being placed on the consent agenda? Hearing none, the chair has asked Karen Quasny to review this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Thornton. A warning, I'm not wearing the reading glasses that were proffered to me, so I'm going to try and do this because I'm in denial that I need them. This is a request for a variance to Section 4.4 and 4.4 of the subdivision regulations, which require that all lots created by subdivision must meet all requirements of the zoning ordinance and that all lots shall have direct access to a public street. The existing lot is zoned Ag 1 Agricultural District. The current property owner purchased the property in good faith and with the intent of building a single-family residence for himself and his family. At the time of purchase, the property was described and dimensional upon a subdivision recorded in Map Book 62, page 43, as being 1 acre in area. Said subdivision was recorded in 1964. In all subsequent descriptions, the property has been referred to as a 1 acre parcel. However, the property was transferred via deed to the recording of the 1 acre descriptor subdivision and narrowly fails to meet the certain dimensional criteria required in the AG1 Agricultural District as shown in the staff report. As shown on the survey included in this report, while the subject site is 164 feet in width, it does not have direct access to an accessible public street as required by Section 4.4D of the subdivision ordinance. The property indirectly connects to the 30-foot wide public right-of-way of Indian River Road via a gravel driveway, which is shown as being a 15-foot wide right-of-way. The site will be developed with 1 single-family residential unit. The site is an open lawn surrounded by heavily wooded areas. The site is located south of the Green Line, where less populated, lower density recreational and rural areas are planned for and characterized by an abundance of natural resources, larger open spaces, and the city's prime agricultural lands. This area is also identified as being part of the Princess Anne Special Economic Growth Area, an interfacility traffic area high noise zone between NAS Oceana and NAS Fentress. One of the principal effects of this new designation is to reduce the residential density to what can be achieved by right with agricultural zoning, which is 1 unit per 15 acres. Due to the incompatibility of residential uses in a high noise zone, recommendations for the Princess Anne Sega include striving to achieve 50% open space, protecting sensitive land, limiting residential development to areas outside of the ACUS, restricted areas, expansion of suburban infrastructure in the northern portion of the ITA. Given the recordation history of the subject site, staff finds the requested subdivision variance to be in keeping with the recommended development for the subject area. The subject request is generally in line with Section 9.3 of the subdivision ordinance. It is not expected that the adjacent and surrounding properties will be adversely affected by the subdivision. Accordingly, in keeping with the staff's recommendation, the Planning Commission recommends approval of the request following conditions listed in the report.
Thank you. The next matter is item number 2. This is a request for a conditional use permit for a cemetery. The address is 2020 Laskin Road. The application is from the trustees of the Eastern Shore Chapel. It's in the Beach District. Is there a representative to speak for this matter?
Good afternoon. I'm Bruce Gallup. I'm a local surveyor and engineer. I'm also a member of Eastern Shore Chapel and here to answer any questions, and we're in agreement with the conditions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any opposition to this matter being placed on the consent agenda? Hearing none, the chair has asked Commissioner D. Oliver to review this matter.
Thank you, Commissioner Thornton. I have to wear reading glasses. I can't see. This applicant is requesting a conditional use permit to allow the development of this 23.64 acre site for an expansion of the existing cemetery. The cemetery is associated with the Eastern Shore Chapel that operates under a conditional use permit on the adjacent parcel. The chapel and the cemetery have been on these properties since 1954. Due to the age of the operation, there's no conditional use permit for the existing cemetery. This is actually the 4th location for the cemetery and the chapel. The first location for Eastern Shore Chapel was founded in circuit 1689 in the colony of Virginia, a parish of the Church of England. And in 1730, the second Eastern Shore Chapel was constructed for approximately 1,000 pounds of tobacco. In 1900, the original cemetery was created on the site of the third Eastern Shore Chapel on a land that is now part of NAS Oceana. The cemetery was relocated to its present site in the early 1950s, by the U.S. Navy due to the expansion of the runways. There are currently 5,545 gravesites in the existing cemetery. There are about 518 sites available for sale to the church members and to the general public right now. There is a columbarium which was built, and it has 295 niches, and 178 are available for sale. The applicant projects that the inventory of available graves will be exhausted by approximately the year 2022. So the proposed cemetery expansion area will add approximately 2,500 new grave sites. According to the applicant, a portion of the proceeds of the sale of the grave sites is put into a trust fund, providing funds necessary for the current and future maintenance of the cemetery grounds. There are two accesses into the cemetery by Laskin Road via Bratton Avenue, which is a 30-foot wide right-of-way, or Eastern Shore Chapel Road that has an existing private driveway. Portions of the property are within the resource protective areas of the Chesapeake Bay Preservation Area. However, no encroachment into this environmentally sensitive portion of the site is proposed. This is a great use for the existing church-owned property, and it is approved highly by the staff, and it has one condition, and therefore we have approved it and put it on the consent agenda.
Thank you. The next item on the consent agenda is item number 4. This is an application by 2700 International Parkway Corp. It consists of two requests. One is a modification of proffers and conditions of a conditional use permit that was approved back in May of 2002, and proffers also dated in January of 2002, two different sections. Also, it's a request to a conditional use permit for a mini warehouse and a self-storage facility. It's located at 3132 Sturbridge Court on the east side of Lynn Haven Parkway, and it's in the Rose Hall District.
Thank you, Mr. Thornton. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, for the record, Eddie Burdon, Virginia Beach Attorney representing the applicant. First of all, I need to correct the disclosure that's in your package. The engineer of record merged with American Engineering. It's no longer Martin Engineering, so just correct that. It's American Engineering is the engineer. Also wanted to indicate that the plan that you all were shown this morning is a different plan that is in the package because of a last-minute request to share the entrance, and that plan will be added to the proffer agreement between now and City Council, because that's not technically what you all are voting on. Secondly, with regard to the buffer to the east, we've got a 30-foot setback, more than's required, and we will do everything in our power to maintain the existing tree line on the eastern boundary. There is a ditch that will need to be piped, but we expect there'll be close to 15 feet along the boundary line that will not have to be disturbed, and we will supplement that landscaping, which I think that Mr. Kemp was going to add that as a condition to the use permit, or we can do it as an addition to the proffer between now and City Council.
Thank you, Mr. Burdon.
Thank you.
Is there any opposition to this matter being placed on the consent agenda? Hearing none, the chair has asked Commissioner Jack Wall to review this matter.
Thank you, Commissioner Thornton. On May 14, 2002, City Council approved a change of zoning on the subject site from R7.5 residential district to conditional B2 community business district. Conditional use permit was also granted for a mini warehouse facility to be located on the site. The approved site plan from 2002 depicted 2 office retail buildings on the northern portion of the site and 5 storage buildings located directly behind them. The rear portion of the site remained residentially zoned, and the site plan depicted 8 single-family residential lots. The applicant now desires to develop the parcel with a large 3-story storage facility, as well as to subdivide a portion of the site for future commercial developments. The new site plan varies significantly from the plans approved in 2002. Therefore, a modification of the proffers and conditions is required, as well as a conditional use permit for a storage facility. The submitted site plan depicts a 3-story storage building situated on the eastern portion of the site, with a parking area located in front of the building. There is 1 access point to the site, which will be a right-in, right-out only from Lynn Haven Parkway. A paved drive aisle and loading areas extend along the side of the building, and access will be controlled via gates. The paved area will be enclosed using a 6-foot tall aluminum fence. As required by the zoning ordinance, a 15-foot landscaping buffer containing Category 4 plant material will be maintained between the building and the adjacent residential properties to the east. Although not shown on the submitted site plan, the applicant will install the required street landscaping along Lynn Haven Parkway as per requirements outlined in the city landscape guide. The stormwater management strategy includes a proposed wet pond located in the middle of the site. The comprehensive plan identifies the site as being located within the suburban area. The general planning principles for the suburban area focus on preserving and protecting the overall character, economic value, and aesthetic quality of the stable residential neighborhoods and reinforcing the suburban characteristics of commercial centers and other non-residential properties. Staff recommends approval of this request with the submitted proffers and conditions, along with the one condition, I think Kevin stepped out, concerning the preserving and protecting the existing landscaping and trees to the maximum extent practical along the existing residential subdivision. So with that, we have placed this item on the consent agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner Wall. The next item on the consent agenda is item number 5. This is an application by Esperanza Foranda. It is a request for a conditional use permit for housing for seniors and disabled persons. The address is 4672 Indian River Road, and it's in the Centerville District. The chair has asked Jan Brzezinski to read it, but we need the person up here first. I'm getting ahead of myself. Is there a person to speak for this matter?
Hello.
Hi, good afternoon.
State your name for the record, please.
I am Esperanza Poronda, registered nurse, and currently working as administrator for All for One Home Health Care at present. I am the owner of the Maximil Assisted Living, which we are trying to have a permit.
Okay. Are the conditions that the staff has given you acceptable? The conditions in your application?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Is there any opposition to this matter being placed on the consent agenda? Hearing none, the chair has asked Commissioner Rosinski to review this application.
Thank you, Commissioner Thornton. The applicant requests a conditional use permit for housing for seniors and disabled persons within the existing single-family dwelling. A registered nurse and an aide will be on site at all times. The applicant, who is also a registered nurse, is pursuing licensing through the Department of Social Services, and obtaining a conditional use permit is one of the requirements of that for her authorization. The one-story, 3,100 square foot brick structure has 5 bedrooms. The attached garage has been converted into office space and guest restroom facilities. It is the hope that the applicant to care for up to 8 people within the home. However, the DSS and the fire marshal will set the final building occupancy standards. The site is located just over 1 mile from Hampton Road Transit bus route, and as a result, the residents of this facility will not be eligible for paratransit services. These services are mandated by the Americans with Disabilities Act, and the official policy of the HRT is to provide such services if it's within the 3/4 mile from the bus route. Transportation to shopping and other activities will be provided to the occupants by the operator of the facility. The use of the home for housing seniors and disabled persons in its current form as a single-family home ensures compatibility with the surrounding land use and with the adjacent residential development. The applicant is aware that any additions or expansions to the scope of the operation will require a modification to the conditional use permit. The applicant will continue to work with the Department of Social Services and the Planning Division for permits, inspections regarding state licensing and building code requirements. Staff recommends approval of this request with the 7 conditions which are approvable to the applicant. Since they're agreeable with everything, Planning Commission thought that it was had favorable staff recommendation, therefore we have placed it on the consent agenda.
Thank you, Commissioner Rosinski. The next item is item number 8. This is an amendment, this is from the City of Virginia Beach. This is an amendment to the comprehensive plan policy document regarding Section 15.2 of the ordinance pertaining to designated growth areas.
Mr. Chair, member of the Planning Commission and city staff, my name is Brian Solis. I'm representing the City of Virginia Beach in this comprehensive plan amendment. And what you have before you, I believe we have a couple of slides, but is an amendment to Chapter 2 of the comprehensive plan, which is your urban areas chapter. And it's the one that speaks to the 8 strategic growth areas that Virginia Beach, and you were very active drivers of that effort from 2007 to 2013 to master plan 8 strategic growth areas throughout the city. And what this amendment does is align that proactive planning that you've done in the past with what the state calls urban development areas, or in our case, designated growth areas. We're just calling them something different. And this wasn't originally a requirement in 2007 that localities, if they had these UDAs, that they, it was a mandatory requirement that they make this adoption to the comprehensive plan. In the 2012 General Assembly, they modified the state code to make this an optional requirement. And the reason why we're doing this primarily is because the state gives you additional credit when applying for grant funding for transportation projects, because your land uses are more efficient use of land than a more of a suburban style that causes more transportation infrastructure to be built to support them. So what the state does is kind of reward you if you have a transportation project in a UDA, in our case an SGA. And the graphic on the screen to my left shows those areas throughout the Commonwealth as they're currently mapped that are UDAs or designated growth areas. They could be village scale, that could be the scale of our town center and our Pembroke SGA. And what that is to the far right is kind of a draft page from the state plan, VTrans 2040, currently in the draft stage, that kind of highlights the Pembroke SGA as an example of a designated growth area. And so what we're doing is aligning our comprehensive plan to State Code Section 15.2-2223.1 that acknowledges that we have these 8 strategic growth areas. And with that, staff recommends approval. I stand by for any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any opposition to this matter being placed on the consent agenda? Oh, you've heard the explanation, so we're finished with that matter. The next item, Mr. Chairman, is item number 9. This is an application by Mark and Kenny Samtani and McCall 1600 LLC, a special exception for alternative compliance to the Oceanfront Resort Form-Based Code. The location is 1602 Atlantic Avenue, and it's in the Beach Council District.
I'm Bob Miller, representing the owners, and the revised item number 9 conditions are acceptable to the owners.
Thank you, Mr. Miller. Is there any opposition to this matter being placed on the consent agenda? Hearing none, the chair has asked Commissioner Mike Inman to review this application.
Thank you, Commissioner Thornton. This is a request or a special exception for alternative compliance to the Oceanfront Resort District Form-Based Code. That's a mouthful, you know. This is 1602 Atlantic Avenue, and the site is currently developed with a 2-story building which most closely follows the criteria for mixed-use building type as prescribed by the Oceanfront Resort District Form-Based Code, by having at least 2 stories and containing 1 or more commercial uses on the ground floor and a commercial use on the upper floor. The applicant is proposing to demolish this existing structure and develop the site with a 9,500 square foot, 1-story commercial building. As shown on the submitted drawings, which are up on the screen now, the exterior of the proposed building has been designed with the intent of being perceived as a mixed-use building type. However, by not truly providing 2 stories of use, but the appearance of 2 stories is provided. or providing outdoor amenity space, the proposal misses two elements which are primarily would differentiate it from a mixed-use building and a commercial building. Proposed building will meet the prescribed minimum height for a mixed-use building by being 25 feet tall for the majority of the site, 34 feet tall along Atlantic Avenue. The proposed materials include a standing seam metal roof, standing seam metal awnings, IFAS facades, and stacked stone. The proposed building elevations incorporate many of the recommendations of the Oceanfront Resort District design guidelines and will largely be perceived as a two-story mixed-use building by pedestrians using 16th Street and Atlantic Avenue. The quality design of the exterior of the building will contribute to creating a great district with distinct identity, which is recommended by the Resort Area Strategic Action Plan. The mixed-use building type requires 5% OAS, and the commercial building type requires 0%. To be more consistent with the mixed-use building criteria, the minimum 5% should be located between the proposed building and the rights-of-way of Atlantic Avenue and 16th Street. We believe the proposed development of the site as shown on the elevations and as recommended by staff would lead us to put it on the consent agenda. And we reviewed the conditions, the revised conditions in our informal session this morning and found them to be appropriate.
Thank you. The next item on the consent agenda is item number 10. It happens to be the same applicants, Mark and Kenny Samtani and McCall 2904 LLC. This is a special exception for alternative compliance to the Oceanfront Resort Form-Based Code. The address is 2904 Atlantic Avenue, and it's in the Beach Council District.
Bob Miller again, and I represent the owners. The new conditions are acceptable, and I just wanted to thank Christine and Karen this morning for spending time with making sure we could work out the conditions, and thank the Planning Commission for putting us on consent.
Thank you. You're more than welcome. Is there any opposition to this matter being placed on the consent agenda? Hearing none, the chair has asked Commissioner Inman to also review this matter.
Because I had such practice in the prior application, I got to do the second one as well. Again, as Mr. Thornton said, this is the same applicant as in the prior agenda item and is the same request, a special exception for alternative compliance to the Oceanfront Resort District Form-Based Code at 2904 Atlantic Avenue. It is very similar concept that the building that we're starting with in this particular case is only one story as opposed to two stories in the other case, but the design that is proposed accomplishes the same thing as in the prior application, that is the appearance of two stories, and for the same reasons that were given in the prior application. It is believed that these elevations incorporate many of the recommendations of the Oceanfront Resort District design guidelines and will be perceived as a two-story building and will, because of its excellent materials being used, it will help create a better district and distinct identity. And therefore, with the conditions that were also discussed this morning and revised, we recommend it on the consent agenda.
Thank you. The next item is item number D2. This is an applicant from the owner of the property, Forefront Christian Church. This is a request for modification of a conditional use permit for a religious facility. The address is 2520 Holland Road, and it's in the Princess Anne District.
Good afternoon. My name is Scott Tuning. I'm with Pannoni Associates. I'm here representing the church, and we've reviewed the conditions, and we're good with everything that's listed.
Okay, thank you, sir. Is there any opposition to this matter being placed on the consent agenda? Hearing none, the chair has asked Commissioner Karen Kwasny to review this application.
Thank you, Mr. Thornton. This is a request for a modification of a conditional use permit for a religious facility. The site consists of a one-story church building and 56 marked parking spaces. Portions of the site are currently gravel and accommodate overflow parking. A conditional use permit for the existing church was approved by the City Council in 1995. Since then, there have been several requests for use permits and modifications to the use permits approved by City Council, two of which include the allowing temporary portable modular structures on the site. This request for a modification to the existing conditional use permit is threefold: a time extension for the portable units on the site, 7,000 square feet of additions to the existing building, and 105 total paved parking spaces. The applicant has indicated that the church is in the midst of a fundraising effort to expand the sanctuary and classroom spaces. Currently, worship and educational facilities, including the existing portable structures and parking spaces, are insufficient to meet the demands of the church. The site is located within the Southern Rivers watershed and the suburban area. Staff finds the extended use of the portable units as an acceptable interim solution to meet the needs of the church until an expanded worship and education center can be built. The submitted building renderings are, in staff's view, complementary to the existing church structure and will be an enhancement to the site. The proposed parking lot expansion certainly appears necessary, as it is evident that the church's use of the unimproved grass and gravel parking areas surrounding the church. Based on these considerations, the Planning Commission recommends an extension to the time limit of the portable structures and approval of the church's building and parking lot additions as conditioned in the report.
Thank you, Commissioner Kwasny. Mr. Chairman, that was the last item on the consent agenda. I would like to move that items 1, 2, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10, and D2 be approved.
Motion made by Vice Chairman Thornton. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Jack Wall. We are ready to vote. Are we operational? Verbal? All right.
Jack?
Aye.
Karen?
Aye.
I could abstain from number 2.
Aye.
For what?
Conflict of interest.
Well, could you
Can-
possibly be a little more specific about that? Just what the conflict consists of
Do
in
we do
general?
business with them?
That's fine.
Okay.
Aye.
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 By vote of 11 to 0, the commission has approved items 1, 2, 4, 5, 8, 9, 10, D2, with the abstention noted on item 2. 10-0.
I would like to thank all the applicants who had a matter on today's agenda for attending today's hearing. These items will now be scheduled for our hearing on the City Council's agenda. We'll now ask the Secretary to please call the next item, but I believe we're going to swap the order and do D1 first, because I think there's a number of people that have taken time off work to come down. So we'll do D1, and then we'll jump to agenda item number 6.
D1 is an application of CCW Development Associates for a conditional change of zoning from A12 apartment to conditional A12 apartment on property located at 596 C. Oates Way, District 6, Beach. Mr. Brodon.
Thank you, Mr. Russo. Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, for the record, Eddie Brodon, Virginia Beach attorney representing the applicant. Mr. Chris Edel and his son Michael are here in attendance this afternoon for this public hearing. First of all, this is somewhat unique in that typically what we've seen over the course of the last 15 years or so with A12 property and the interpretation of the 40% lot coverage is we come forward with rezoning applications to a higher number, A18 or A24, and proffer that will only have 12 units per acre because the lot coverage to do these higher end, nicer units, when you count the driveways and the walkways, et cetera, exceeds the 40%. The 40% only lets you do, small, flat, less valuable units. Recently, and this came to my attention with this application, the ordinance has been changed so that we can actually do that without changing the zoning category, which helps because people think, oh, they're doing 18 units or 24 units per acre when you're not. So this is interesting because it's the first that I'm aware of where we're going A12 to A12, but the A12 is just simply because we're proposing 49% lot coverage instead of 40% lot coverage, and also the setback changes that Carolyn Smith went over with you all in the informal this morning. So that's the first part of this. The history, which I think will be somewhat helpful, the owners of this property, their families had owned all of this property at one time, and back in the 70s, and the property here was sold. All of it was zoned multifamily at the time. I believe it was A1 zoning at the time, but this was sold off, and easements were required to be provided to their property. Subsequently, I think this property changed hands, and a new developer came in to develop these Sea Oats condominium, and they wanted to make some changes, and that resulted in a recorded agreement that I provided all of you all copies of, just so you've got it, and that the residents of Sea Oats condominium, they have copies. I've provided those to them last evening, and they may have had a preview prior to that, I'm not sure. But that is an of-record document that preceded the development and creation of the Sea Oats condominium. That provides that this property, again, zoned the same as the Sea Oats condominium at the time and today and ever since, has access using their private roadway, as well as access to water and sewer that are provided at the end or very close to the end of that private right-of-way, and that's an agreement that's binding upon everybody. And again, I've been giving you all copies and highlighted that, and I'm not going to dwell on any of that unless y'all have any questions later about it. The plan that's before you is same density as could be done by right. We did work extensively with both Carolyn Smith and other members of staff to design this to take advantage of a very beautiful piece of property. There are a total of 8 units, which is the density calculated based on the highland. None of the wetlands that are a part of the property are included in the acreage calculation that results in the 8 units, which are an A12 density on the developable land. As Carolyn mentioned, we're able to save this very large tree here. This unit's 16 feet off of the property line, where there's a very large wall, and that wall will remain. We may have to widen it a little bit, but my clients, after the other night, determined that they do want to keep the wall. I think that's what folks in the community that live close to the terminus point would prefer, and that's what we intend to do. The units are 2-story, well designed. They will sell for somewhere around $400,000, $380 to $420 per unit. It will be a condominium, just like Sea Oats. It will also be a condominium. Same scenario. Management before it's all over with, may have the same management company. We don't know that at this point. Not certainly proffering that to be the case, but that in some ways makes some sense. The units are hardy plank and with arbors and some design characteristics, again, and beautiful views. I think it'll be quite successful project. Again, not increasing density. It'll also be noise sound attenuated, and the development will meet all of the current much more stringent stormwater management requirements, capture and treatment requirements than existed when the adjacent properties were developed back in the mid-'80s. The issues that were discussed at the meeting on Monday night, and I think had been previously discussed, and I don't think answers were necessarily clearly given. The issues of access, water, and sewer, I'll start with those. Access is clearly provided by that easement. It is clearly also the obligation of the developers of this property, the owners of this property, that they would be then required to enter into a shared maintenance agreement for that roadway across Sea Oats' property, to share in the maintenance cost of that roadway moving forward when this property is developed on a pro rata basis. And they also would be responsible for any damages to the road, if any is done during the construction of these units. There will not be any pilings driven during the construction of these units, so it's, I think, highly unlikely that there'll be any damage from the construction, other than there is a potential, based on some of the things we were told, that there could be some issue with some of the laterals, the sewer laterals in the the private road if they're too close to the surface and/or if they're Quest piping, but that's an issue that we'll have to deal with. But there'll have to be a shared maintenance agreement with regard to the road, and we would be responsible for any damages done to the road during construction. And moving forward, that would also be an agreement that would go into effect that we would have to enter into in writing and record that would deal with the ongoing maintenance of that road in the future and paying our pro rata share of the cost of doing so. The sewer is the other issue, the sewer pump station. Interestingly, the pump station was designed for 32 units for COs, and there actually are 37 or 38 units in there, and they had a lot of problems, we understand, with the pump station for many years, but recently the pump station's been upgraded and new pumps put in, larger pumps, and they're not having any problems. We will have to upgrade that pump station at solely my client's cost. Larger pumps and potentially an expansion of the wet well, that will be determined by our engineers providing a proposal. They'll have the opportunity to review it with their engineers and the company that is maintaining the pump station. We will enter into agreement with them that we'll be responsible not only for all the costs of the upgrades, but moving forward, the monthly maintenance costs. We'll have a pro rata share of those costs that this condo will bear, as well as long-term capital replacement costs with regard to the pump station and with regard to the street. Those will all be shared costs. There's nothing going to be, no burden's going to be placed on them beyond the burden that they currently have. And that's a requirement of the agreement. All the details aren't in there, that this property with its zoning and its highest and best use, same as theirs, would have access to the pump station, to water, and to the road itself. We've also agreed that, it's a condominium, we'll have, private pickup, not with a large city garbage truck on site. And again, that's something that may wind up being using the same company that they use. I assume they have private pickup, but we will have to have private pickup for all of the trash removal. And we will not have a dumpster. And I'm trying to think, were there anything else that was discussed at the meeting? I don't think there really was of any consequence, but it's not going to be anything that's going to put any burden upon those unit owners beyond the legal obligation that currently exists, that this property can be developed using that private road. And they won't be paying for any of our private road or anything having to do with our end of the development. There are 27 units today that use that road, and these additional 8 units are not going to overburden that road. And the density of this development at 8 units is based on just the high land. And from everything that we've been able to ascertain, when the COs was developed, they used every square foot of land, including a number of half an acre of wetlands to get the density, which these folks had nothing to do with, but the density is actually higher and the lot coverage is actually higher in COs than it will be in this development. Be happy to answer any questions anybody may have.
Any questions for Mr. Badon? Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Trevor Markert.
Ladies and gentlemen of the commission, thank you all for seeing us. Again, my name is Trevor Markert. I have been a resident of CO's condos for 15 plus years. As the gentleman in front of me spoke, there were some concerns that the community had regarding water, sewage, the maintenance of the road. Since then, we've actually had, since our original meeting as a community, we did have a meeting last Monday that was very nice. They communicated with us that they are going to take responsibility of development of that road, so then the existing Quest pipes underneath aren't affected during construction. Also put a plan together, at least not in detail, but at least discussed it, that addressed maintenance going forward and a few of the other concerns we had in regards to the pumps being upgraded, things like that. So as long as those things are taken care of, I think the communities will welcome them, look forward to it, and as long as we know that that's going to be taken care of, we're good.
Any questions for Mr. Markert? I'd like to say something.
Yes.
I thought at your meeting, thanks for inviting me to that on Monday, and Ms. Oliver came along. That was just a great meeting compared to some of the others I've been in. There was no finger pointing. Everybody talked through the project. Everybody was level-headed and I just appreciate the way you guys have handled this. I do wish you had more information prior to Monday, because I know you had a lot of hearsay going on, so I wish that meeting could have happened, even a month ago. But I appreciate your community, and it just goes to show why Chatillon, in my opinion, is probably the best neighborhood in Virginia Beach. But I'm biased. But thank you again for willingness to work with the developer, and I'm glad, appreciate you coming down, taking time off work to come down and, I think, show your support for what they're looking to do, so.
Again, thank y'all very much. Ms. Oliver, Jeff, thank y'all for attending the meeting, and yeah, we're looking forward to the community growing the right way.
Great.
So, thank you.
Thank you very much. I call that one a success, so.
Mr. Chairman, that's all the speakers that we have.
Mr. Burdon?
I would also echo what you said, Mr. Chairman. And I'm partly to blame for the meeting not happening sooner because of travel plans, and I had to be out of the country, and that's another story beyond what I was supposed to be out of the country. But that it should have happened sooner, and that's on us. But the discussion and everything was totally legitimate, and we will be working closely with them because we have to formalize these agreements before, as Carolyn mentioned before, we got to get these agreements formalized before we can actually start construction. Right. As you all know, that will be months down the road.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, no other speakers?
No other speakers.
We will now close the public hearing and open it up for discussion amongst the fellow commissioners. Please come up to the microphone. Hello.
Good morning. I'm Rosalind Roll, residents of Kempsville District.
I'm sorry, what was your name again?
Rosalind Roll.
Okay.
I was concerned because the announcement in front of Kempsville Building Materials said 12 o'clock today.
Yeah, we're going to hear that one in about 2 minutes.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. All right, we'll now open it up for discussion. Anybody have anything they'd like to add? Would anybody like to make a motion?
I make a motion to approve the application.
Motion made by Commissioner Ron Ripley,
I'll second it.
second by Commissioner Jan Rosinski. We are now ready to vote.
Verbal.
Aye.
Aye.
Dean.
Aye.
Ron.
Aye.
Bill.
Aye.
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 Jan.
Aye.
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 I vote 10-0. The commission has approved the application of CC Development Associates.
Thanks again for coming down today. Appreciate it. We will now call agenda item number 6, I believe.
Yes, the next matter is agenda item number 6, an application of the City of Virginia Beach for a conditional change of zoning from I-1 to B4 mixed-use district and conditional use permits for group home and single-room occupancy facility on property located at 104 Witch Duck Road, northeast corner of Witch Duck Road and Cleveland Street, District 4, Bayside. And do we have a speaker from?
Good afternoon.
No minutes.
Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, my name is Andy Friedman. I'm the director of the city's Department of Housing and Neighborhood Preservation. Thanks for the opportunity to talk about this project. It's called the Housing Resource Center. We're requesting conditional change of zoning from I-1 to B4, and we're requesting 2 conditional use permits for an SRO and a group home. The parcel in question is 3.88 acres, as you said, at 104 North Witch Duck. The site proposes a new access drive from Jersey Avenue, and we are going to have 166 parking spaces. It's located in the Pembroke Strategic Growth Area. The center will be a 3-story, 60,000 square foot facility that seeks to focus, coordinate, and enhance how our community deals with and works together to end homelessness. It will provide new services to residents of the area, as well as new city office space and the homeless. It includes the following components: a day services center to assist currently homeless persons to access services and do laundry and take showers. This replaces the current Lighthouse Center. Provides central intake and assessment that provides a single entry point for homeless persons and those in danger of homelessness. 40 new beds of shelter for the single homeless, including dedicated beds for people with medical issues and flexible space to serve people of different ages and genders. 10 new flexible motel-style shelter rooms for families with children who are homeless. 30 new apartments for the single homeless, which will be rented and used as flexible permanent housing. A health clinic providing primary health services both for residents of the Housing Resource Center and of the surrounding community, coordinated by the Virginia Beach Health Department. Commercial kitchen and dining area to serve on-site shelter residents. A learning center to provide flexible classroom and meeting space for training classes and city and community meetings. 11,000 square feet of office space for the Department of Human Services, providing direct services both to residents and members of the community. And office space for our department and multiple nonprofit and faith organizations who will be providing services to the homeless there. City Council authorized the purchase of this site in 2012 after a comprehensive community process of reviewing options to replace the Lighthouse Center. In 2013, Council authorized design funding, and this year in 2015, Council authorized construction funding. Comprehensive opportunities for public input on the site and on the facility were provided in the spring of 2012, in the spring of 2013, and the spring of 2014, which included a design charrette for anyone interested. When we designed the facility and worked with the architect, we stated the following principles, which I believe we have achieved. Number one, ensure accessibility of services for those who need them. Ensure that we can serve varied populations while keeping all attendees safe. Design according to the SGA design principles. Design flexibility into the facility so that future needs can be accommodated, and incorporate sustainable design and sustainable operational systems whenever possible. In addition, since this will be a city facility representing a significant investment in the western part of the strategic growth area, we wanted the building to be a model for how future development should be done. I believe that, as proposed, the facility does all those things. I thank you for the opportunity to provide this info, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Friedman? Your elevations look amazing.
Great.
I mean, I'm going to get ahead of myself, but if it's, I can see design award on that in 2018.
Great, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, our first speaker in opposition is Edward Williams.
Good afternoon.
Good morning. Welcome. Hello, members of the commission. Thank you for letting me speak this morning. I am not.
Please state your name for the record.
Edward Williams. My partner and I, Jack Law, are Williams and Law and owners of 120 Jersey Avenue, which, if you can give me a how do we get this thing to work?
It's a pointer. Just pick it up and
Comes up.
pick it up. No, pick it up and just point it. There you go.
Okay, now, this property right here is 120 Jersey Avenue. That's our warehouse. This is the city proposed project. Go back one, if you will. The access to this whole property is right in here, which is a 24-foot driveway. First of all, I think the project itself is great. We are not in opposition to the project. But where that access is to get into that property with 166 parking slots is going to be a traffic nightmare for this reason. Our warehouse is 13,000 feet. It is full of floor covering, carpet, wood, ceramic tile, vinyl, and pad. On a daily basis, we have up to 10 crews who pick up starting at 7 o'clock in the morning, as many jobs as we can schedule every day, which is generally 5 to 8 or 10. As well as multifamily apartment business. And when that happens, the deliveries for the pad, the deliveries for the carpet accelerate exponentially to truckloads, 53-foot semi-trucks coming in on a daily basis, delivering that material. So starting at 7 o'clock, this is our warehouse right here. The direction of the semis come in here, they come down Jersey Avenue, they pull up, they back into our warehouse and unload. Typically, a 53-foot semi has 50 rolls of carpet. If we were doing a multifamily project, we would take that in a few days in advance. We would rack it. We would send it out to the tune of 2,000 or 3,000 yards a day until it's done. That building is done. It's done by the building. We have to supply the pad to go with that, as well as the vinyl or LVT or ceramic, whatever we're doing. That's where the crews come in the morning to pick up, and they typically leave. They start at 7. They'll be gone by 9. They have to wait in line for loading, and we get them out as quickly as possible. At that same time, we'll typically get a delivery because they're not scheduled with the work. They just come in as before the work is scheduled. And we will have as many as 2 or 3 53-foot semis lined up here in line, waiting for this guy right here to get out of the way. At the same time, the 8 crews are buying, load me, and so it's a real cluster going on there to get it done, but we manage. I'm proposing that this entranceway here, and I'm only speaking for myself, Hutch's Metro Auto is right here. He's got another whole issue on top of mine. This is a busy street without another 100 and some cars or people or whatever coming in and out on a daily basis with trucks blocking them and causing a problem. It's already a blocking problem before we even do this. So I'm proposing that this access to this property be redesigned to Southern Boulevard with a feeder, in-feed off to get the traffic coming in out of the road back into their parking area, which the parking area for this whole design is right in here. Right in here. This could be redesigned to allow access over here, hopefully easily, as opposed to this right here. This is going to be blocked, and it's going to be a mess. And we require enough room to get our product in and out. And it goes on all day long until 4 o'clock. Then we do it again the next morning. So that is my issue.
Okay.
I think the project's wonderful. I think it's great to be dealing with the homeless in this way. I'm impressed with the architectural designs. I think it's going to clean up the whole area. It's a plus for all of us. Yeah. But I don't want to create another problem or a worse problem when we can, in fact, if it's designed or redesigned and tweaked, it can be that extra traffic can be handled without a cluster, a jam up. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions for Mr. Williams? Thank you.
I do have one. Andy mentioned something about the charrettes. This has been a fairly well-vetted project. Did any of you all in the neighborhood go to any of those meetings or know about those meetings?
I was not aware of those meetings. I did, we talked to an appraiser came out, but of course he was talking to us. They're taking a piece of this corner of our building right here, and they're curb and guttering our property, which is no problem. We're going along with all that, but was not aware of the design of this at this point. And nor did anyone contact us to talk about our traffic or point out a problem with it. But once I knew that this was coming about today, I thought it would be prudent to come down here and before the dirt is starting to be shoveled, to possibly request a redesign or just move that access, because it will be a problem.
Is there any, does the semis take up the whole road? I mean, is there any way to get by?
Well, no, it's their whole lane. They're stacked up in the right hand as they come down Jersey. They'll be on the right hand side. They'll wait to come into us. Sometimes they can just come up and the back end of the truck can be opposite the door, and the forklift will come out and offload them for a roll or two. But when they have 10, 15 rolls, they have to back into the warehouse. So they'll get totally out of the road. But they'll be, while he's in the warehouse and unloading, which might take 30, 40 minutes to an hour, the other one is stacked up, or 2 of them will be stacked up on Jersey, waiting in the right-hand side across that They won't be blocking that if that were built, that entranceway, but they would be on both sides of it and taking up the whole lane so that traffic would have to go around them into the opposite lane to get out.
Yeah.
And that's the mild version of it. But, you know, it's just, there are, with us as well, we have 4 employees that work at the warehouse, basically. With other salesmen, we have 11 employees total. Everybody goes to the warehouse at one time or another during the day. There are 3 full-time people that work out of the warehouse, and then all the mechanics, up to 10 trucks, average. Maybe more, but on an average, 8 to 10 separate crews visit at any time during the day, and they won't all come first thing in the morning. So, and the deliveries come whenever.
When Kinsel was there, were they a problem for you, or were you there
Never.
at the time?
Never. They were there.
They delivered from off Kinsel?
They left about the time we came. We bought that warehouse from the limousine people who bought it from them. So I think they were, how long has it been? We've been there about 8 years, 7 years maybe. So I'm not sure they've been gone, but we never had an issue with that. And they don't have an access back there.
Yeah.
So it's a non-issue for them and us. We just coexist.
Mr. Inman?
Why couldn't the vehicles that are waiting, the trucks that are waiting, wait somewhere else in the vicinity? I mean, you know, around the corner, down the street, on Southern Boulevard?
It's possible. It is possible, but then, you know, it's a, Southern is a more major thoroughfare.
Well, I wasn't.
Over to Euclid.
Yeah.
And if this were redesigned to take, let's suppose that the entrance was here, you could have a feed in, what do you call it, when you pull in? Just
Turn lane.
A turn lane, a long turn lane to take several cars out of Witch Duck. But if, I don't think that Southern is going to be wide enough for standing trucks. And, you know, the traffic on all of these streets is pretty busy.
I wasn't specifically suggesting Southern, although I did say that, but there's a myriad of streets all throughout Cleveland Street area.
Well, also, if you spend any time over there, you'll notice we go through there all the time. And because it's an industrial zone, a lot of truck deliveries are going on all the time. And they're all doing their thing and wherever they are on these other streets. On our street, it's primarily Hutch's, us, and auto parts. So it's kind of ideal for a wait and stand. And of course, people can go by. You can't block the road. But it's probably more problematic to move. It's busier on other streets than it is, but we have enough traffic for our own street without dumping this huge amount of extra in there.
We saw a little bit of that last month with that application about the parking issues and I forget which street that was
With
on.
George Louisa's
Yes.
application.
Any other questions for Mr. Russo?
So, as I understand it, then, this is really going to be more of an impediment to the cars, mostly cars, ingressing and egressing from this new site.
It's going to be a problem, but it's also going to be a problem for us because it's without that, the way it is, it's enough balancing act for all the trucks to come out there and wait. I mean, of course, they just get in line. But yes, it's going to be a problem for all the parkers in there. It could also cause potential accidents because they're going to have to pull out around the trucks that are just standing there. The driver's usually in the truck waiting. He's not going to move. And these guys want to drop and run, and they're going back to Richmond, and they're going to Georgia or whatever. We get deliveries every day.
Okay, well, but the trucks that are waiting, are they pretty much just waiting in front of your facility?
There's not enough room in front of our facility to, let me see.
Go to the next slide.
Right.
It shows better.
Because if they were much farther, they'd be blocking Mr. Hutchins.
That's right. Well, sometimes they are. Two of them, if two of them come, I'm stretching into him, and we kind of share the space, and we've been working together for years. He'll come over and say, you know, I got to move these guys, or can you move him? And they'll go around the block again, and we just do what we have to do to get together. But the introduction of so much more traffic on this street with blocking trucks, waiting is going to be a problem.
And I appreciate, I think there's problems with fit throughout this whole
It really is.
area
It really
there.
is.
But even with the trucks there, a car coming out of the facility, wouldn't they be able to, I mean, it'd be tight, but wouldn't they be able to get past a
Well,
waiting
here's what-
truck?
Yes, they can get past the truck. Typically, there you go. Typically, we'll have one, or if there's a truck in here, right here, this truck will be out right here because he wants to pull up here after this one leaves. This truck will drive up and then back into the warehouse. Or he pulls up with his back end right here. The front of the truck will be right here. The back of the truck will be at the door. The forklift will come out and he'll unload him. If the entrance and the exit is right up here for this parking area here, this truck will be up beyond, he can't block the entranceway. So if he comes down here and waits, he's either going to have to, and not block the driveway here, he'll either have to back up when this truck comes out and pulls out and goes this way, or he'll have to be up here. And there might be two of them, so two of them will take up, two trucks right here will go from here to here. That's 104 feet. And that's if their bumpers are touching. So the danger, another danger would be if this car pulls out and this truck is blocking their lane, if they turn right and come this way, then they will have to go over in the opposite lane, past that whole truck, and be against the traffic, going in the wrong way in the wrong lane, in other words, to get out on Southern Boulevard.
Or I guess they could just head north to Cleveland Street.
They could. That's
Yeah.
right. We don't know what they're going to do. But I see it as problematic with so much traffic, as well as just in and out. It's a dangerous point because of the access right there. And you'll have a blind scenario with the trucks, one way or the other. So accidents, there will be more potential for accidents there, not to mention just a jam up.
Mr. Ripley.
What are you going to do when they put the transit station there?
And the high-rise parking goes in there?
Yeah, and the parking goes across the street.
Well,
I mean,
that's another reason that it's going to be even
how are you
more.
gonna- how's this going to work?
Okay. Well, as I understand it, the parking is going to be one of these, or maybe the whole parking area will go up, whatever.
I haven't seen the design. But
When that happens, you can add, how many cars, 500? Whatever?
300.
To the whole equation, and that's even worse. So I would think that it would be imperative to take that access away from this squash zone here and put it to where it's more wide open. I know that Southern's going to be widened, and they're going to curb and gutter, at least down here as well as along this whole new project. So hopefully, when that happens at phase 2 or 3 down the road, that we won't be adding to the problem, and it'll just be accessing, going out on Southern Boulevard. I understand also in talking to the director of this project that they had tried to get access over here to Cleveland Street, and it didn't work out. But I had a short meeting with them this morning before we came in here, and we told them exactly what I just told you, and so we're going to go back and see what we can do here about the problem. But I think if we avoid that on the front end, it would be better for everybody.
Any other questions? Mr. Weiner.
Yes.
How many truck deliveries do you get a day? 2, 3, 4?
2 or 3 average, and as many as 5. But it's just, they go from 24-foot vans local up to 53-footers.
Any way possible you could schedule them to be before 9 o'clock in the morning?
I would love that. I would love to get my material first thing in the morning, then I could do it same day. Typically, this material comes from Dalton, Georgia, as well, and it goes to Richmond and down, and when they come down and they offload in that distribution point there, they have 10 drops, and they'll schedule it out logistically, starting in Newport News and then Virginia Beach and Chesapeake. So even though we requested first thing every morning, all of them, we get them up as late as 2 o'clock. which messes up for,
Or if they can't get there by 9 o'clock in the morning, not till after 2 o'clock, to have some type of compromise here.
I don't see that happening with them. We've tried for years to try to just get it in. They just said, look, we'll get it to you when we get it to you. And we have no control over that, which makes it tough on us for our work. Because a lot of our work is scheduled very quickly, next day, 2 days. So every day matters. And if they don't get, if they get it to me at 2 o'clock, it's too late to actually install it for the day because it's more than a day's work.
I think if you have independent drivers too that make their money
Exactly right.
by how many miles and how quickly they get their delivery there, that would really,
I have to do this every day.
Yeah.
Schedule. If you're not there by noon, don't come till tomorrow.
That's right. And typically too, we have some anger issues with the drivers, with the traffic that we have without the introduction of that.
That's typical for truck drivers.
I know, yeah, some of them are quite nice to work with us and we even help unload, others, they're independent.
Right.
any other questions?
It's-
Mr. Thornton?
In looking at the plan, it looks like Jersey Avenue is a 50-foot right-of-way, and there's 26, if I'm reading this right. The traveled way now is 26 feet. So maybe one of the things you could possibly do is talk to the city about widening Jersey. There's maybe 10 or 12 feet of width up against the side of their property, the city property. It would add some on-street parking over there. I don't know what it's going to be. It looks like it's going to be landscaping or something. This plan doesn't show it. But what you're saying is your trucks are sort of queuing up along the side of that building now.
Yes.
That's been empty for several years, so it's easy to do. There's nobody bothering you.
Exactly. And even if it were a going business today, the way it is, it would be no problem. There's a fence there. The street almost goes up to the fence, and the
Well,
parking is right there.
I think, I hear what you're saying. This is going to create a problem for you, and if it creates it for you, it's going to create it for everybody in the neighborhood. Maybe you all could sit down and figure out, maybe to widen Jersey on that side and put in some on-street parking. There's room there to do it. I mean,
It would have to be temporary parking, though. I mean,
Well,
if you
yeah,
see
I mean.
a loading and unloading.
Unloading, you see a sign that says unloading zone or loading zone. And that way your trucks would have a place to get out of the way. The other alternative is, I want to ask Andy when we close the hearing and get him back, is there's a large pull, whoever's got the control of that picture, pull it down. The city owns the corner of Witch Duck and Cleveland.
Yes, sir.
And that's not designated for anything. See those hatch marks? They're buying all that. They have bought all that property. So that corner is going to be used for something. And you'll notice that Den Lane comes into the side of that property. Maybe there's a way to get in there from Cleveland Street or use that corner for parking. That's just a question for him later. See that hatch mark?
Yes, sir.
That's all going to become city property.
You mean up?
Yeah, right here, yeah. That's all going to get bulldozed and turned into something.
Right now, there's a transmission thing going on.
Right, all that's going to go away, that corner and across the street.
Well, that would be ideal.
Dr. White, I think, has something he can add right away.
No, we're acquiring some of that but matter of fact, we just got a use permit application for the auto transmission places there for them to relocate, or not relocate, but to reestablish on their operation on the rest of what's not being acquired. So we're not taking the entire site.
Is that hatch mark then is not exactly accurate?
Things are fluid, as they say, with this project as the acquisition phase is moving forward.
Any other questions for Mr. Williams? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is David Hutchins.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. David Hutchins. I'm in agreement with Mr. Williams about what's going on. And, we have an automotive shop, and we're also a state inspector facility. So we get a lot of trailers from down the road, and they're 19 to like 26-foot trailers that we get coming in all day long, sometimes 4 to 6 in a day. And they'll just come sporadic here and there, and they back in, and they have to, it's really short, you know, the width of Jersey Avenue right now. And this is really going to be a problem for us. And we also park on the road. We've been doing that since, you know, I bought the property. We park right on the road. All my employees park along the road right there. So, you know, with the way they're designing it, we're going to lose like 6 parking places that we're used to having. And y'all did say, you know, something about maybe widening that road and putting some more parking in there. Or maybe even at the right end of the facility you're bringing, if they could make that come in around that corner, you know, so you just come in and it's just an opening to come in, because you have plenty of parking, you know, set up on the facility now. So if they make it more to the right-hand side where they could pull in, you know, that may, you know, that's going to clear up his end of the street, and it's going to clear up me, because right now it's straight across from where I'm at. So people are going to be pulling in, and Mr. Russo, you know, he comes to our shop. He knows it's kind of tight over there. So, you know, he's pretty familiar with the area, and, you know, the way they have it set up is really going to be a problem.
This may be a question for Mr. Friedman when he comes up, but is the new parking going to be restricted to just that facility, or are businesses around going to be able to use that parking? And that's something we can find out. Any more questions for Mr. Hutchins? Thank you, sir. Thanks for coming down.
There's no other speakers listed, I believe. Ms. Williams, I think.
Any other speakers that didn't sign up? Okay. Mr. Friedman, would you like to come back up?
Thank you. We had the opportunity to meet with Mr. Williams, Mr. Hutchins, just before the meeting. We had not known of their concerns beforehand, and we would very much like to sit down with them. We plan to set up a meeting with traffic engineering and the architect and the civil engineer for the Wishtuck Road and Southern Boulevard thing, and see if there's a way to engineer for this problem that we were not aware of. I would say that the Housing Resource Center is not a traffic-intensive use. It will have city employees arriving at 8 o'clock for the Human Services Department and leaving at 5. But daytime traffic, we think, will be moderate. So I think the big conflict is going to be between 7 and 9 a.m. when he's doing most of his deliveries and crews are there, and people are arriving to go to work at the center.
How many employees are you estimating?
I think, do you remember, 100? 80
80.
human service employees and probably 30 to 40 others, and mostly arriving in the 8 to 9 o'clock time.
You know, I see the potential for accidents. Like they said, if there was tractor trailers lined up and you have to go out between them and hopefully go into the opposite lane to get around them. What about are they going to be allowed to use this parking for?
Right now, we had not thought of that, but it's something we'll talk about as a possibility. If we can come up with ways to use the facility that we're creating to help ameliorate the overall problem. I know the city has done that in the past. We'll certainly look at that.
I mean, I think it's a great facility, a great location. I think they do have legitimate concerns on this.
And we would like the opportunity to meet with them, and we will take the opportunity to do that and get the people who can determine what engineering solutions are possible, if any.
Any questions for Mr. Friedman?
I've got
Mr. Thornton.
two.
I want to
Yeah, go ahead.
Have you, the engineering work and architectural work we're looking at, is that complete, or is that a preliminary, just schematic phase at this point?
The architect is about to complete 60% plans.
Okay, so the site plan is about 50, 60%, is that what you said? Okay. So, but would you, and again, in your discussions, you'll consider the option of Southern Boulevard possibly?
So I'll try not to be a traffic engineer, but they really said we don't want access on Southern Boulevard. And our design really would be constrained to put access on Southern Boulevard. I'm not saying it's not possible. I think more likely is some modification to Jersey, which won't impact the current structure, but would reduce the parking on the site. And, that would be my thought, is without being the traffic engineer, that's the most likely way to solve this problem, is widening Jersey.
As Bob mentioned a minute ago, coming down Den Street, is there a building, or does that street run right into your property? I can't tell from looking at this.
Den is a paper street on that site. And let me point out that the left side of Cleveland Street, which is hatched, is the city attempted to acquire that property but has not acquired it. The right side, I believe we are in the process of acquiring and would be available for city uses, which I think are already planned, but we'll look into that.
So maybe a combination of widening Jersey and managing the truck traffic to some extent.
Right.
Might be a combination, okay.
Mr. Thornton?
I was just going to say that the way you have your roundabout in there, and it depends on whether the city's able to buy that property. If you could go from Cleveland to that cul-de-sac or that roundabout and leave Jersey in, at least you'd have two ways in and two ways out, and it would spread the traffic around. But if the city doesn't buy that property, you can't do that. You can't put a road. It looks like at Cleveland and Den, it's going to be an intersection with left turn movements there, based on what I see. But a lot of it depends on whether if you look at that carefully, you'll see there is an intersection plan there. It's awful close to Witch Duck, but there is a left turn movement there that connects you to Den on the north. But whether or not you get it on the south or not is anybody's guess. So it seems to me if it turns out that the city does get it, that would be a good place for you all to have another way into that site. But that's unknown at this moment, I guess.
Sir, we agree with you, and as the person said, we were hoping to get that property and have a second access point. So far, that's not been possible.
Does this, my question to you is, if we were to defer this today so that you meet with the engineers and these folks in the neighborhood, is that going to mess up your plans too much? Is having us hear it today that critical? Or could it wait a month?
We are hoping to be at front of City Council on September 18th. That was our desire.
Hello, Karen Porcello with the Department of Housing. We do have a schedule we worked out with our architects. We would like to be able to meet with the individuals that are in opposition to the road, because our engineers are also the engineers that are doing the roadway project. So maybe we can come up with some solutions as well. There are some things that we need to bring to their attention, like that piece of property that everyone was in discussion about. In addition, that intersection that you see at Den, we did discuss that as an alternative at one point, but that does impact the property to the south of the property that we were talking about that's hatched. That road, if we were to build that road, would impact that building. We'd have to do a demolition to part of that building, which we don't own. And those property owners are not interested in selling at this point as well. So it doesn't impact just one property, it impacts both of those properties that would be along Cleveland.
When did you say you were trying to get in front of council?
September 18th.
18th. That's, yes, 15th, okay. Our next meeting is on the 9th. I'm sorry?
Then we could do it.
We can do that. You could hear it that week, and we double advertise it so that council hears it the following week.
I mean, I think everybody here agrees it's a great application, and we want to see it successful and go through. But, I mean, I think they have legitimate concerns that up until just now, I didn't know about.
We were not aware of that, and we're more than happy to work with them.
Okay.
Mr. Russo.
Getting back to Southern Boulevard, is the problem that, well, what is the problem with that being like an alternative access?
The engineers that looked at that, and also during the charrette, that was something that was discussed. But one of the primary concerns was the fact that that is now an intersection that would be where the on-ramps and off-ramps are. So you'll see a lot more traffic. In addition to that, we would see the light rail and the potential for the light rail station down the street. So we wanted to keep that access as clean as possible.
Yeah, and if,
It's a-
Stephen, if you could show us the site plan again. It's kind of constrained as far as the location of the delivery portion of the building is not, reasonably close to keep that open and provide access for the trucks that were expected to come in on Jersey. It's pretty tight over there. I'm not saying it can't be done, but, so we're going to look at all options in these discussions.
There may be some possible solutions.
Back to the charrette, this is for future. When you have something like that, how is it that these people didn't know about that? I mean, it would have been wonderful had they been there and had some input and known about that. Does that get advertised to the public?
They were advertised.
And they just
The rest
didn't
were
see it?
advertised on our, not only the newspaper, but also on our website.
I saw it.
We did let some individuals in that area that had signed up previously when we were looking at the Housing Resource Center's possible locations. They had signed up, and we contacted those individuals as well.
But no letters were sent to the surrounding few property owners?
There were letters sent to property owners. I am not sure which ones.
Okay.
Not Mr. Williams.
No.
Mr. Weiner.
Oh, good. Oh, I'm just going to say, we regret that Mr. Williams and Mr. Hutchins didn't know about it. We thought it was widely covered in the newspaper. It was widely covered in the newspaper.
I saw it in the Beacon.
Many times.
This might be a question for staff, I'm not sure, but could the ingress, degress be part of the site package review, and we could just approve it as it is today, and let it go through to site plan review, so they don't have to worry about coming back, and they can worry about meeting with them later, or is that something everybody wants to see come back here, and so we can look at that before it goes to council?
Stephen's not looking too good.
You're still leaving yourself open to a solution that may not be acceptable to Mr. Williams or Mr. Hutchins.
And you're taking a risk that the city council would want to hear from the planning commission on that issue anyway.
I was asking a question just to see.
We're not hurting their schedule if we move it a month.
No, I think it's better to err on the side of caution.
Yeah.
I agree. This is a big impact for this area.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Yeah,
Rick?
Well, we're in discussion phase here.
Not yet, but we're doing a little bit. Do you have any, does anybody have any more questions?
I
for
have one more question, but I'm not sure it's for either one of you. It's actually for the second gentleman, but you can tell me whether or not you'd consider what I think he suggested, which was coming in earlier on Jersey?
Yes.
Yes? So,
Put it
for
up top.
instance,
Move it.
cutting in on, taking the drive aisle on a angle.
Yeah, toward where the car quest is.
Right.
Close to Cleveland
Okay, just want to
Street.
make sure I understood.
There's nothing really going on at
Mhm.
that end, and if they could bring it in and then, could.
So your
might
traffic
even
comes
keep
off
that
before it
nice
actually
grand
hits your
entrance they
problem?
have and just come around and zip in.
Okay, that's
And it might be a lot nicer.
It still allows you that drive aisle entryway that you have, which is a really nice visual of the building.
And that's
I
why
see.
we have a meeting with our engineers too.
See if that's possible. I just wondered if that was what he was saying, because I wanted to visualize it.
See, we bring it in
Mhm.
the top.
Yeah.
Any other questions before we close the public hearing?
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, we'll now open it up for discussion. Mr. Rip.
I have a question of the staff. The application for Mr. Hutchins, when he came through, because that application it's not very old, and it was it's an outside storage, and I remember it being a chain link fence cover type thing, and it's not something we're really excited about doing, but we did it because of the transitional nature of the area. Is that a limited time period on that particular conditional use permit? Was that a 5-year period or something? Do you recall?
Carolyn and I are old timers, and we're looking at each other, and
Well, the point I want to make is, and not to be overlooked by everybody, including the opposition, that is, it's a transitional area around here. This is the SGA, and we try to work with the applicants best we can on a transitional basis, but the die is cast for it to really kind of eventually become more of an urban plan, and we're going to have these things. And so that's the first point. The second point is, this is a public road, and Mr. Williams and Mr. Hudgens, they'll have to recognize that too. They don't own the road, right? Correct. Unless I look. And so, I mean, y'all need to take that into consideration when you're talking with Mr. Freeman, because he has a right to get in there as well. And so, if you're consuming the whole road, I don't think that's fair either, you know?
We're not asking for that. We're just asking for a little consideration to make it a little more usable for us as well.
I hear that, and I think y'all were very gentlemanlike in coming down and expressing your point of view, and I think you'll find Mr. Freeman very amenable to trying to figure out a way to work with you too.
They seemed very nice when we talked to them earlier. So.
Those are just just two comments I want to make. Thanks.
Anybody else? Would anybody like to make a recommendation or a motion?
I'll make a motion that we defer this for them to have the opportunity to discuss this, the ingress egress situation, so that we have a better product to send to City Council.
All right. Mr. Rosinski made a motion to defer for 30 days.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Ms. Oliver. You got our system working?
Aye.
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 By a vote of 10-0, the commission has deferred item 6 for 30 days.
See. That is our last item. On behalf of my fellow commissioners, I'd like to thank everybody for attending today's hearing. Enjoy the rest of your day. It's beautiful outside, and meeting adjourned.
Thank you for your.